You already know what time it is. This is Art of MMA. I'm Mike Ginn. That's professional kickboxer, the mechanic, Brandon Katina. We're back in action for the first time in 2023. We took a nice little 3-month break, but we're back. The King of MMA is back. The longest running show on the network, even though kickboxing might be the most rated. We're the longest running show on the network. Brandon, how you feeling, man?
Man, feel good, man. It's good to be back with you.
I was expecting you to say to talk my minds on a Wednesday. Like that, it's finally on a Wednesday. We were doing it on a Tuesday for a while. We're back on a Wednesday. A couple quick things before we jump into the show today. For one, kind of changing up the format a little bit quicker of a show. It's only going to be a 30-minute show going forward, so you guys can get the action and go on with your days. I know these hour-long shows sometimes get a little bit long-winded, so we're going to give it quick and fast. A few subjects and out. We're going to hit it hard and then let you enjoy your day. The other thing, Brandon mentioned to me off air, a lot of people don't know. A couple other shows on our network, kickboxing, as well as Crossing Borders, they all have their own merch. So not just Art of MMA. Go ahead and head over to fightersfirst.shop, get the collections, support the brand, support the shows. We're doing a lot of great work behind the scenes, trying to build things up even bigger for 2023. So check all of that out. Brandon, we got a lot to talk about today. UFC 286 made some noise last weekend. We'll talk about that. Later on, we'll talk about Conor McGregor going against USADA. And then we'll also talk about what's next for former heavyweight king Francis Ngannou. A lot to talk about that. But hey, it's been long enough. Let's get to it. UFC 286. Brandon, UFC 286, Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman III, the third time. A lot of people forget this is actually the third fight. Usman won the first one back earlier in their careers. Edwards, of course, with the famous, as he calls it, head kick death, the last second knockout in the last fight. This time they're in London, Leon Edwards' backyard. Leon Edwards wins by majority decision. Tell me your thoughts on the fight. Did you think it was a good decision, and what did you think of the fight?
Yeah, no, I mean, when it was live time, I had thought Usman won it. I think I gave Usman the second, the third, of course, because I gave that a 10-8 round, and I think I gave him the fourth round. So I think I gave Leon the first and fifth. But I guess you're really looking at the judges. I guess they gave Leon the first, the second, and they really gave him four rounds. Two of the judges. Like I thought maybe it could have been a draw. But I was kind of leaning a little more towards Usman on this one.
Yeah, I actually had it a draw. I don't think that's a bad decision. I had 3-2, but obviously the point deduction, so 47-47. When I look at it, first and fifth, I think we're clear Leon. I think rounds 2, 3, and 4, and even 1 and 5 really, but every round was so razor close, and it really depended on how you scored the fight. Because it takes me back sometimes to that Carlos Condit Nick Diaz fight where Nick was controlling the center of the octagon, but Condit was landing from the outside a lot. Leon Edwards landed almost 70% of his shots, but only a few of those were really damaging every round. And at the same time, Usman was the one, pursuing him, going around. I think Dana said in a post-fight thing that he thought Usman might be a little gun-shy kind of going in because he got knocked out. And I've said multiple times on this show, you don't know how a fighter is going to come back after getting really knocked out for the first time. You look at some fighters like Jorge Masvidal, he hasn't been the same since he got knocked out by Usman. You look at other fighters like Usman, he came out, he looked fine. He looked fine. He just looked like he was being smart. He wasn't setting himself up too much to get caught by a head kick. He got kind of caught with it a couple times, but not to the point where he got knocked out like last time. I think just rounds 2, 3, and 4 were so close. It really depended on what your criteria was, and of course, the point deduction. I'll say this about the point deduction. I don't know. I would not personally have taken a point for him grabbing the cage because it was only one time, even though it was a very blatant grab. But I think in Herb Dean's mind, I've never seen a fighter have more fouls than Leon Edwards had that fight. Between the low blows, the glove grab, the cage. And I wonder more of it was just Herb Dean all right, cool. You've done enough different things. This is it. I'm taking a point. But I don't know if that one thing was enough to take the point by itself. I don't know. Did you think it was worth taking a point?
I mean, yeah. I mean, usually, like I say, usually before the fight, you like, you know, they have their fighter meeting, like the ref talks to them. So really, right there, they're already giving you a warning. Like you're already getting one warning right there. And then I say, then the fight happens, and then you do it again. Like, I mean, how many warnings do you need? You know, that's why we usually get on reps, because it's like you're giving everybody like 5 warnings, and then you're like, okay, I'm finally gonna take a point away. It's like, well, then, like, you know, what's the point of it?
Yeah, no doubt. I just don't know. I thought if you don't take the point away, I think on all 3 scorecards, Leon Edwards wins this fight easily. So I don't think it's a bad decision. I don't think many people are questioning the decision. I could see either way. I could see Usman getting that decision, but also I think you got to come in and beat the champion. In this case, Usman was the challenger. So they might see each other down the road again. Usman doesn't sound like he's done it all. Like he's going to go back to the drawing board and work his way back up. Edwards now has a whole set of new challengers, right? We know Colby Covington weighed in as like the secret like backup plan in case somebody couldn't make weight. But Leon doesn't seem interested in that fight at all. Leon's kind of shut it down, said, you haven't been active in like a year and a half. Why do you deserve this shot? Kind of like the Conor McGregor effect. I think Colby Covington's just one of Dana's guys now at this point. Maybe he does force the issue and get the fight. I don't think Colby Covington should get the next shot. I think if we're in a ratings game like right now, because look, Dana's more concerned with crap like Power Slap and promoting Conor, even though Conor hasn't won a fight in forever, promoting those names that he knows can draw money. I think in his mind, the best thing that could happen to him is if, next month in Miami, if Masvidal somehow upsets Gilbert Burns, and I would consider it an upset because I think Gilbert Burns is just going to take him down. But if Masvidal somehow upsets him in Miami, I think Masvidal Edwards is a much bigger fight because of the back history and the personal history that we all know than a Colby Covington fight. And I think Colby Covington, I don't know if he beats Edwards because I think it's a similar style than Usman, like the takedowns and the control and the wrestling. And we know that Edwards has now takedown defense, and we know Edwards has really good jiu-jitsu on the ground. I don't know what happens in that fight, but I just don't want to see Colby Covington next. What about you?
Yeah, no, I don't. I really don't think Colby Covington deserves to be next. I really don't get it because the thing is, this is the
lost 2 title shots, right?
Yeah, he did already have 2 title shots, but the thing was, he had his title shot, lost it. Then he beat
Masvidal.
Well, no. I'm talking about before that. He had his original fight against Usman, right? Lost that fight. Then he just had one more fight where who did he beat? Was it no? It was Lawler. Lawler was the first one where he got the first title shot.
The fight between the Usman fights was the now I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I'll tell you. The Woodley fight.
Yeah, there you go. Tyron Woodley, who was kind of on the decline as well, and then he got another title shot. Lost that. Now he beat
up Masvidal.
Masvidal, who also too is on a decline, and boom, he's gonna get another title shot. There are other guys like Bilal Muhammad, who's been active, getting W's over here. To me, man, I feel like if Gilbert Burns wins this fight against Masvidal, maybe he should get the next shot. I don't know why. I don't know. I get it. Colby Covington has star power, whatever that means to you.
He's a shit talker and stirs up the media.
But again, he's lost, and now he's getting another title shot. It just doesn't make sense.
It's time for new blood, especially in that 170-pound division where you have, whether you like him or not, Khamzat Chimaev, who hasn't lost. He hasn't been active as much as he probably like, but he's still right there in the conversation, who just beat Gilbert Burns in his last fight. Covington has ducked, I think I saw somewhere, 4 fights with Chimaev. Chimaev's agreed 4 times to fight Covington, and Covington said no 4 times. Covington's clearly waiting for a title or nothing at this point. That's all he cares about. And I don't blame him when you get up to the number 1 spot. I get from his perspective, but from the fans' perspective, I don't think it's just what we want.
Yeah. Also too, it really is one of the things too, where the rankings, they don't do you justice. You get a title shot or you fight for a title if you were the number 1 contender and you lose. then you basically stay as number one contender for some reason. Like you don't go down what you should.
Yeah, like right now, Usman's number one. Yeah, right now Usman's number one, but he's lost 2 fights in a row.
Yeah.
And another guy, Shavkat, we talked about him, Rakhmonov coming up real fast. He gets the top 5 guy next and goes through him. He's got to be a top contender ready to go.
Yeah, apparently I think they're trying to do Bilal Muhammad versus him.
And I think that would be a phenomenal fight because I think the one knock on Bilal is that he struggles with taller guys like Leon Edwards. The distance was giving him trouble. Like you can talk about Bilal's winning streak in the no contest against Leon, but the truth was Leon was winning that fight. And if it wasn't for the eye poke, you never know. We saw Leon in the 5th round knock out Usman, so anything can happen in a fight. But that fight was leaning Leon's way pretty clearly until the eye poke. So I don't really know. I think Leon Edwards, one thing I will say about my only critique about him is that he's got to clean up some of these fouls. The eye poke against Muhammad, the glove grab, like he does like little things here and there. He was trying the inside leg kicks. They rode up a couple times, caught Usman in the groins where even Usman was like, man, come on. And Usman was trying to fight through it. He didn't want to stop the momentum of the fight. Like he didn't want to stop and take 5 minutes. But
we've
seen this from Edwards for a while.
It's kind of like how John Jones is, with his eye pokes and stuff like that.
But that is that. Let us know. Who do you think Leon Edwards should fight next? I think it's a crowded top of that division, but a lot of the names we've seen over and over again. It's time for some fresh blood. And I've been calling for Shavkat versus Chimaev for a while. Like, let's see which one's the next big thing. I know they're trying to keep them separate.
But I think Chimaev is moving up to 185. I think that's why maybe he hasn't been doing anything.
He's been doing both. Look, he said from the beginning he wants to be champ at both divisions. We've seen him more at 170. I think we've only seen like one fight at 185, maybe 2.
Yeah.
But he said from the beginning, like Conor, when Conor came in, Conor said, I'm going to take over 145 and 155, just like I did at Cage Warriors. And he did what he said he was going to do. And I think Chimaev, even though it's a different camp, he's up in Sweden versus, Ireland. But, I think he's kind of seen that game plan. I think that's kind of what he's followed a lot is kind of Conor's early game plan. That's just my thoughts on that. Real quick, elsewhere on the card, Justin Gaethje got back in the win column against Rafael Fiziev. I've said for a while, I think Fiziev, I don't think he has the it factor. Like he has like the highlight reel, like he did against RDA, but I don't think like in the long term, like against the top level guys, I just don't see him there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. But Justin Gaethje, kept his cool. By the way, this card had I think like 6 or 7 split decision or majority decision fights. Like that was crazy. What do you think of the Justin Gaethje Fiziev fight?
Yeah, I definitely tell you this, man. Justin Gaethje's defense was definitely a lot better. He didn't get hit as much, so
and he wrestled.
Yeah, it took him to the 3rd round to finally wrestle, but he could have did it earlier. He
brought back that NCAA pedigree we've been talking about for years, but he never uses.
Yeah. So, but overall, man, it was a good fight. Like I said, there was definitely violence. I'm saying he was landing. Justin Gaethje was landing his uppercuts, which was catching Fiziev, but he busted them up. He definitely gave him that damage, and you just see Justin Gaethje, he was looking like Fiziev looked like he got touched, and Gaethje looked like he didn't get touched, and then to me that's why he got the nod.
Well, let me ask you this, because this fight does a lot of confusion for the lightweight division. We hear Makhachev talking about Leon Edwards and some other things, like he wants to fight everybody except for the people in his division. We know he may be forced to fight Oliveira again in the rematch. Fiziev, if he had won this fight, was going to be set up to be a contender. Now that Gaethje won it, Gaethje holds strong at that 3rd spot. Who really does get the next shot at lightweight? Is it somebody like Gaethje? Dustin Poirier doesn't seem to be interested in fighting right now.
To me, I feel like saying it would be Dustin Poirier, but the thing is, like, they just haven't contacted him or anything like that. Like, it took that guy a minute to get a fight. He was calling everybody out, but nobody was signing contracts.
And we know nobody wants to fight Beneil Dariush.
Yeah. Well, he is fighting Charles Oliveira in May, but
yeah, but he's like at this point he's Bilal Muhammad. Like he's like Charles Oliveira before Oliveira finally got that title. Like, he keeps winning and winning and winning, and nobody wants to give him that shot. I mean, we all know Darush should be next. Like, Darush should have been next a long time ago. If he beats Oliveira, there's no question he has to be next no matter what Makhachev wants to do. But I'm not sure he beats Oliveira, to be honest with you. I think it depends on which Charles Oliveira shows up too, because Oliveira over his last few fights has been like knock down, drag out, and then pull out a submission or something, or a knockout at the out of nowhere. And whereas Makhachev kind of bullied him a little bit and kind of, I don't know, like, do we see Oliveira go back to his roots with his jiu-jitsu and other things? Or does he come out trying to bang with somebody?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dariush to me is like Makhachev, where to me, he won't be afraid to go to the ground with Oliveira because he has tremendous jiu-jitsu as well. Yeah. And he has good striking coming from King's MMA. So, I mean, that fight with
Oliveira, good wrestling. Dariush has really good wrestling too.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again, you have a division with a lot of the same names that have been up top for a long time: the Poiriers, Michael Chandler, and then everybody keeps calling out Conor, right? Because everybody wants that payday. So we'll see. We'll talk about that later. It was good to see Gunnar Nelson back. He got the big armbar submission over Brian Barberena. Jennifer Maia kind of got an upset over Casey O'Neill, in my opinion. Do you think? Did you see that one coming?
No, I had thought Casey O'Neill was going to get the W, but then again, she did have that long layoff coming off the knee surgery, so it was her first fight back. So, but Jennifer Maia just beat her to the punch. She had way better striking than Casey O'Neill did.
One thing that's funny is you don't see the ladies complaining about like things like greasing and stuff like that very often. So to hear it come out of a ladies fight, I was kind of like, I thought it was hilarious that Jennifer Maia was complaining about Casey O'Neill greasing. One fight that kind of surprised me, I know Vettori's been a top contender for a long time. I actually thought Dolodiz was the guy on the rise. I thought he would give Vettori a fits, and Vettori took care of him pretty easily. Jack Shore with the submission win over Americani. First of all, both Chris Duncans won. No matter which Chris Duncan you had on your scorecard, they both won. One versus Omar Morales with a split decision. The other one against Todorovic versus an injury TKO situation there. Ashimoff got the win over Patterson, knockout. Makaev over Phil over submission. Lerone Murphy, first of all, this guy keeps on winning, just winning. He's another guy that's going to be a problem for a while. Another one of those weird split decisions as well against Santos. Jake Hadley, another hometown guy, over Gordon with a TKO. Your girl JoJo got the win. Joanne Wood versus Carolina, split decision. Jai Herbert got the win over Ludwig Klein. And Veronica, formerly Masato, now Hardy, after being off a couple years, came back and got the win against Juliana Miller. They've been pumping Miller up because of the tough thing, but she fought a tough veteran, and Masato got the job done. A lot of people have slept on her. She's always had like a very steady, like she keeps on winning, a couple losses here and there, and people have kind of slept on her. And then she had the injury and took off a couple years. You think Veronica can still be a problem in that division?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she's just coming back off a layoff. She got her hand raised. She looked good. Just gotta see, who they give her next.
Yeah, I think, obviously, her husband's Dan Hardy, so hopefully UFC doesn't hold that against her as far as like promoting her. But she wins big fights. Like every time I've seen her in a clutch fight, she's come up big. She lost a couple, but most of the time she wins. So that's UFC 286. We're gonna go ahead and move on to the next thing. Conor McGregor. We know he's coming back tough. Michael Chandler. They've already had a couple squabbles inside the tough camp. I'm sure all that will play out on TV when it comes out in May. That season runs through August. And then they're supposed to fight at some point later this year. Well, there's a problem with that, Brandon. Conor's still not back in the testing pool. He got removed from the testing pool when he got hurt. He took himself out so he could rehab without having to worry about it. Of course, we know what that means. I don't even think Conor's really been secretive. He pumped up and put whatever in his body he had to do to get back to getting his leg back. He broke his leg clean, kind of like that Anderson Silva type thing, and Chris Weidman. He did what he had to do to get back. And in the process, he put on a lot of muscle, a lot of weight. And I don't know if he's ready to jump back in that USADA thing. He tried to come out and say that he only needs 2 tests to get back into fighting? Well, yes and no. USADA came out and clarified that. No, he still has to do the 6 months. 2 tests is part of that 6 months. He'll have at least 2 tests in the 6 months. He could get tested more. But in that 6 months of being in the pool, he'll have 2 random tests. The only thing that can override that is the UFC. The UFC, evidently, I didn't know this, in the United States, I know they control anything happening outside of the United States. I didn't know in the United States they could still overrule USADA. I thought once they signed over to USADA, whatever they said went, but that's not true. If Dana White decides to give Conor a pass, he can give him a pass. He never gave Henry Cejudo a pass. Henry had to sit out the 6 months, and hopefully now he can get going. I think they got the Sterling fight now back scheduled for May.
Yep, May 6th, New Jersey.
Yeah, they keep moving it, hopefully. Hopefully it finally happens. But at this point, let me ask you, before we get into any of the specifics, do you think, because we've seen tough seasons before that didn't result in the fight. It's not the first time. It's happened a few times. Is this fight going to happen?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it might happen, but it might not happen this year. Like I said, I mean, if Conor's got to get in the 6 months, you know, he's got to get in there soon, because if you want to have this fight that happen by the end of this year. Now, remember, they did give Brock Lesnar a pass as well, which of course now, you know, they're in court with Mark Hunt over this. You know, so I mean, we shall see what happens. Like say, this isn't their first time if they have given somebody a pass, you know, but you know, we shall see what happens. Like say, you know, he's like say, you know, USADA says he has to be in for 6 months, but you know, they have done this before where they have let people, you know, they made what's the word I want to use? It's because not like I don't want to say pass or yeah, there you go, and an exemption for it. So I mean, we shall see what happens. You know, you got plenty of time. Like I said, the show doesn't end until August. Maybe Conor wants to fight in November. So that
right now 6 months is September.
Yeah, because I'm thinking knowing Conor, he probably wants to do MSG, which of course they usually always do MSG in November. So he's probably trying to get on that, and you know, on that one maybe, or he could be the guy that ends the year in December
in Vegas. Yeah. I agree with you. I think December in Vegas makes more sense because I don't think he's ready to stop juicing in order to start. I don't even know what the word, because he's been training. We've seen videos of him training. He's clearly training, but I don't think he's ready to stop his routine, his cycle, in order to get into the testing pool. And I think that's the delay. He's got a meeting with USADA evidently, but USADA said there's no meeting on the books.
Yep.
And everything Conor says is usually with a grain of salt. Like, you know, he says certain things, but it's like, is it really true? And we also know, we talked about this a little bit with Colby Covington, Dana has his guys. Dana has a certain group of guys that he rocks with. And it kind of makes it disgusting to traditionalists of the sport, but we all know this. This is a business. Brandon, you say it all the time. You're prize fighters. At the end of the day, Dana's going to go with what makes him money, whether we like it or not. I mean, I'm a Conor McGregor fan. I've never been shy about saying that. I love his swagger. When Conor McGregor's on, he's one of the best fighters on the planet. We just haven't seen that guy in about 4 or 5 years. Conor McGregor is also the only guy that Dana White has allowed to go outside of the UFC to compete in a boxing fight. He didn't let Usman do it against Canelo. He shut that down multiple times, even though they say it was never going to happen. It was actually going to happen. I've heard Ariel talk about it a couple times. Canelo's camp was open to it because Canelo was like, that's easy money. And Usman wanted to do it. Dana said no because he saw what happened with Floyd and Conor, and he didn't want a champion looking bad. We've seen Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz couldn't get out of his contract to go fight Jake Paul a couple times towards the end of his career. He had to end up fighting out his contract before he could, you know, do what he wanted to do. The only guy he's let out do it is Conor. Why? Because Conor puts so much money in his pocket. He do what he wants. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a pass or an exemption or something like that. And I also wouldn't be surprised if he fails a test after the fight, like Brock Lesnar did. I wouldn't be surprised at all because at this point, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Michael Chandler is so gung-ho in this fight, he'll take the fight no matter what the circumstances is. You could put this fight at 215 pounds. Michael Chandler would take it. He has no fear. He has no fear. Whether it's healthy or not, he has no fear. And my other thing I wanted to ask you about is, do you think there should be changes to the system? A fighter can take himself out if he retires. A fighter can take himself out if he gets like a serious injury. Do you think they should be allowed to remove themselves if they're not retired, like just injury wise? And we've seen Conor also retire a few times to get away with this too.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I believe. I believe that's the way how you really get out of USADA. Even I think is when you retire. If you're not retired, I want to say I think you're still in the pool. You know, because I mean that's what happened with why can't I remember his name?
John Jones.
No, well, John Jones. No, but I think it's John Hathaway. I think who just came back. It wasn't in the UFC, but when he was in the UFC, he wasn't fighting, but he was still getting tested
out of competition tests. That's what caught John Jones.
Yeah. So I mean, I want to say that's how they get out is through retirement. So I mean, hey, if you say you're retired, you're retired. You know, like,
I mean, John Jones didn't fight for 3 years. He was still getting tested.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair that a fighter can, you know. Like, you have a serious injury, that's cool. Like, I understand you need to rehab a certain way, and Conor had every right to rehab the way he wanted to. But, I mean, let's be real. By the time he fights, he would be out almost 2 years anyway. So he could have took that USADA pop and got suspended for 2 years and come back anyway. Like, nobody would have questioned it coming off the injury that he had. If you're going to have to use some kind of performance-enhancing, HGH, testosterone, anabolic steroid, or whatever to recover from a serious leg break, I don't think anybody really would have questioned him after what happened. But to be able to just kind of skate the rules because you got hurt, I don't think that's fair. Because there's a lot of fighters that have minor injuries that still have to keep competing.
Yep.
Last word. Do you think who's going to come out on top of this? Do you think Conor's going to have to do the full 6 months?
Hey man, you never know. You never know, because they say, man, you know, Cejudo did it, but again, though, Dana White had a grudge against Cejudo, you know. So I mean, you just never know. You never know. I don't.
Oh, I actually have one last question. Covington also said him and McGregor would draw 2 million buys. True or false?
I mean,
I think it's true, but I think it'd be a bad fight because I think Covington would just take him down and be boring.
I mean, I can see, like, say, I mean, both guys are talkers. You know, Conor, like Conor has all of Ireland that would watch and support him and everything like that. So I mean, I could probably see it happening, or at least 1.5. 2 million. It's a little rough, but maybe 1.5. I
think it'd be a big bill, but I'd be a big letdown because that fight Covington would just take him down. That'd be no fight. All right, last subject for the day: Francis Ngannou, former heavyweight king. Of course, his name came to the top of the trending charts when John Jones came out of his layoff to capture the heavyweight crown that Francis Ngannou vacated when he left the UFC. Of course, you're talking about Dana White's favorites. Dana said Francis will never be in the UFC again. Why? Because Francis wanted freedom. Francis wanted the ability to go outside of the UFC. And you talk about things that Conor was allowed to do. Francis wanted to box. Francis wants to box Tyson Fury. Deontay Wilder is coming to the top of the list now. Francis Ngannou wanted his freedom as an independent contractor, and he was fighting for those contract rights that fighters don't get. When you're signed to a promotion, I think when you talk about Francis Ngannou, it's a different kind of animal, Brandon, because you're not just talking about his skills inside the cage. At this point, you're talking about what he represents to fighter contracts, right? Because he fought for his freedom and he got it. And he left on top of the game. He left as the heavyweight king, the pound for, like, the top dog in the UFC is the heavyweight king. He left as the heavyweight king. And, John Jones comes in and says, and here's another corporate speak thing. And I'm not blaming John for it because I get it. It doesn't mean as much if you win outside the UFC. We talked about this before, Brandon. The UFC is not the only dog in town. Yep. And if you go out to PFL or ONE or even Bellator and you get that payday, as a fighter, you're winning, right? Mm-hmm. Like, your job is to feed your family. You're in the short window. I mean, heavyweights fight for a little bit longer than most lighter fighters, but let's be real. You got 10 years really to fight your best and get paid. And Francis Ngannou, who's in his mid-30s or even late 30s at this point, right? 38, 37?
Maybe up 36.
36, yeah, he's up there. He doesn't have a long time left in this game. He got started late, made a blitz through the UFC, got a setback after his first loss to Stipe, came back, dominated, and got the crown through 2 knee injuries, still wrestled Ciryl Gane and got that win. And, I think people seem to have this image of him as damaged goods. But the truth is, he wasn't healthy against Ciryl Gane, and he still got the win easily. Exposing Ciryl Gane to what John Jones then went and did, realizing Ciryl couldn't mess with him on the ground, and John Jones went and ran through him. I think the biggest question is Francis Ngannou is he overestimating his abilities? Because I don't see Francis Ngannou as a boxer. I don't see him stepping into a ring with high-level skilled guys like Wilder and Fury. Like, first, let me ask you, do you think he says his next fight is going to be a boxing fight? That's pretty much done. Fury's got a lot of stuff lined up. That's why this isn't happening right now. Fury's talking with, Usyk. He's talking with Joshua and rematches with other people. So now the name is Deontay Wilder. What happens in a Ngannou-Deontay Wilder fight?
I mean, I think everybody believes that Wilder would still win, but Wilder is the person who everybody thinks that Francis Ngannou would have the best chance of beating, because you got two guys that can just throw bombs, and Deontay Wilder isn't really the best boxer out there as a heavyweight. Like he has, he does have skill, but if you're talking boxing wise, Deontay Wilder isn't really there. He's just a guy that really, man, if he catch you with his right hand, you're going night-night.
See, here's the thing, though. We've seen Wilder get caught before and get back up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if Ngannou gets caught, he's going to get back up. You're used to a UFC situation where you can scramble, you can wrestle, you can grab somebody if you get hurt. Boxing, you got 10 seconds to get back up. And I just don't see it. I think if Ngannou gets caught by one of these wild shots from Wilder, I don't think he's getting back up, because Wilder's put people in a coma before. Like, Wilder hits, there's a reason why they call him the bomber. Like, he throws those bombs and you don't get back up. Fury barely got back up, and you're talking about the guy, like the best heavyweight in the world. So I think that's a tough fight for Ngannou. I honestly think Tyson Fury actually would be a better matchup, because I think Tyson Fury would at least allow Ngannou to get off. Like, I think Fury likes to counterpunch you. I think he likes to see what you do, kind of roll with it a little bit, and then he figures you out about midway through the fight and puts you down. I think Ngannou could get, like how Floyd and Conor went, right? Like, Floyd let Conor get off for a few rounds. Let's see what you're doing. And then towards the end of the second half of the fight, he turned it up in 9th, 10th round. That was it, right? I think that's how Fury is. I think Wilder is going for the knockout from the very beginning of the fight, and I think that's the worst thing that could happen for somebody like Ngannou, who likes to be first. We've seen Ngannou love to be first in all his UFC fights. You go against Wilder, Wilder's going first. So that's a tough fight. I'd love to hear the fans' perspective at home. Let us know, do you think Ngannou wins a fight against any top-level guy? Honestly, I'd like to see him against somebody like Anthony Joshua. I think that'd probably be a better fight for him. But I don't know if that's the name value that Ngannou's looking for. Yeah. The other question is, what happens next for his MMA career? He's talked about PFL. He's talked about ONE. Where do you think we see him by the end of the year? Or does he sign by the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just one of those things about how he said those two, and you don't hear Bellator. And when, to me, really, Bellator to me is the one that you would want to be, doing business with, especially with Scott Coker. And again, we talk about boxing, saying you go with Bellator, you're in that CBS family, you're on Showtime. Who else is on Showtime? PBC. That's where Deontay Wilder fights for. That's where you think you can get that match. Now, could you do a Tyson Fury fight? We talked about, we were just talking about that. But to me, I don't know if Tyson Fury would happen, because to me, Tyson Fury, he wanted to fight against the UFC Heavyweight Champion. Since Ngannou doesn't have that anymore, I think that it doesn't match with him. And plus, his whole thing with Usyk, they were supposed to fight April 29th. That whole thing fell through now again. So who knows what's happening with that? But to me, MMA wise, to me, the place
In
to go
fairness,
is
there's still a lot of stuff going on in Ukraine and Russia and stuff. So.
Yeah. To me, MMA wise, I really would. To me, I would say PFL. Like PFL is where you go, is where he wants to go. Because to me, either one. I think PFL or one. They got money. They got money in the bank for him. They got the vault. They'll open it up. Say, hey, walk in, take what you want. But to me, I feel like saying if you're in the USA still, you're getting your North American audience. That's where the money comes from. That's where you'll get your movies still happening. You know, Jake Paul is there. He'll promote you. He'll pump you up. You know, he's saying he's got a following. He knows how to get people.
I think the PFL needs him more than one. Like I think the PFL needs Francis Ngannou to help promote that pay-per-view model. Yeah,
I mean, and to me, just if you're one, you're gonna be in like Siberia, man. Nobody's gonna know you're there. You'd say, man, we talk about Demetrius Johnson. Us as hardcores, we know who's over there, but people are gonna be like, hey, where are you?
I mean, there's only really like a handful of heavyweights in one, like Buller, like who else? Like, there's not a lot of guys for him to really fight. And then you talk about PFL. PFL's got this new pay-per-view model. PFL needs to say, hey, we got the UFC heavyweight. We got the real champ, right? Like they can promote him as the real champ because he never lost it. And I think that happens with Tyson Fury too, because, Tyson, when he came back from his layoff, he was the lineal champ, right? He never lost. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how Ngannou can now book himself. So I don't think the Fury fight is quite dead. I just think he might need a couple boxing fights to promote himself better to make that more of a main event. The last question I have before we get out of here, I know we're running a little bit longer than we said, but I spent a little bit of time talking in the beginning. Does leaving the UFC hurt his value?
I mean, I want to say no because I'm a hardcore fan where I follow everything, but to most fans, the casuals is going to be yes because they think of UFC only. Like usually most people say they're MMA fans, but in reality they're just UFC fans.
You leave the UFC,
if you're not in the UFC, you don't exist.
Yeah, I think that's where John Jones and them are kind of coming from. I don't think they were specifically trying to diss Francis Ngannou, but there is a name value that goes with being the UFC heavyweight champion. And I don't think Francis Ngannou is scared of anyone. I don't think he's scared of anyone. Yeah. And I think, Corey Anderson kind of said it best. He made more money in a couple fights than he did his entire UFC career. I think when it comes down to it, I don't think Francis Ngannou cares about his reputation.
Yeah. Because the thing is too, is like, I'm trying to think, unless I'm just having a mind blank, but it's like, tell me a fighter outside of the UFC and MMA who's been in like a TV show or a movie,
there's been a bunch of them to be in movies and stuff like that, like Lyoto Machida, Kung Lee famously, right?
But I'm saying though, but Lyoto Machida, was that after the UFC or was that during his UFC time?
After. Like there's been a lot of them that have done like B-level movies, but to say like an A-level or Expendables, like Ronda Rousey, or some of the stuff that Francis Ngannou and Usman, Usman was just in
Wakanda Forever.
Yeah, in Black Panther. And you get those roles like WWE, right? Like you get those roles like John Cena and The Rock. Like it kind of spins off. And when you're in Bellator, Rampage has been in a bunch of stuff post UFC, but we don't talk about it because he's not a UFC star. There is name value. Like whether we love it or not, UFC is a global brand and there's name value. I just don't think Francis Ngannou cares about that. I think he cares more about, he came up from very humble roots. He was homeless for a while. Like I think at this point, I think he cares more about what it means to stand as his own person versus part of a corporation and changing things for future fighters. And I think he's more about being a martyr for that than he does. He cares about all that stuff. But that said, that is today's episode. Leave your thoughts, leave a comment. We love to hear from you. One last thing about promotion. I just relaunched the brand new Art of MMA Twitter channel. It's at the old handle, at the Art of MMA. I finally got Brandon to follow it. I had to say please. But it is new. So it's not like a reactivation. So if you were following before, you're not following now. It's a brand new account. So go give us a follow. We're going to talk about the show. We're going to talk a little about other MMA stuff going on in the world, kind of like how we do with the kickboxing channel as well. Give that a follow. As always, fightersfirst.shop. get the Mechanic Collection, get the Art of MMA merch. Always trying to improve, make things better. But we can't do that without you. So thank you for watching. Brandon, any last words?
Yeah, man, guys, just remember, like, subscribe, man, comment, let us know, give us a thumbs up, or if there's something you want to change, just let us know. Don't you
give us a thumbs down. Don't even give them the option.
Exactly. That's why I do. That's I say thumbs up, man. I just say comment.
Do like the other videos. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. And we're back for 2023. So we'll see you next week. This is Art of MMA. I'm Mike N. That's the Mechanic Brandon Catino. We're out.